Welcome to AK Anime Explainer. Today is explanation of Soul Land 3, Legend of the Dragon King Part 163. Without any delay, start explanation. The soul power requirement for the Spirit Sea realm was 500, whereas the Spirit Abyss realm's soul power requirement was more than 5,000. The difference was tenfold. Although Tang Wulin knew that his own soul power had greatly increased, it would not have risen more than 1,000 points. There was still a wide gap between his level and the Spirit Abyss realm. If Gu's soul power had already reached the Spirit Abyss, then she might have even caught up to Teacher Wu. Teacher Wu's soul power should be at the Spirit Abyss realm at most, right? That was truly terrifying. This cannot be. I must ask her about this. Tang Wulin declined breakfast and went to knock on Gu's door. The door opened, and Gu, who had changed into a long grey dress, walked out from within. She was never the kind of girl who was considered a great beauty. Her grey dress was not particularly eye-catching either. However, for some unknown reason, when it was worn on her body, there was a special quality to it. Why you've reached the Spirit Abyss realm already? Tang Wulin asked with a slight stammer. Gu rolled her eyes at him. You believe it just because I said so. As she said this, she walked out of her room. Of course I believe you. When did I ever not believe your words? Tang Wulin hastily chased after her. Gu stopped and turned around suddenly. She gazed at him sincerely. Then what if I said that I'd intended to kill you last night? Would you believe that? As he looked at her abnormally serious gaze, Tang Wulin was stunned. Why would you want to kill me? Do you believe it? Gu looked at him sternly. I don't think you'd do it, Tang Wulin said with a cheeky grin. He even raised his hand and pinched her cheek. Come on, drop the act. Try something else. Something with more believability. A helpless look surfaced on Gu's face. This guy. Let's go and have breakfast. She turned around and walked toward the exit. In her heart, the words, I don't think you'd do it, reverberated strongly. Tang Wulin chased after her and said, Hey, don't you change the subject. You still haven't answered me. Have you ranked up? Gu said angrily, why don't you shout louder so that the entire hotel can hear you? The breakfast served at the Grand Star Luo Hotel was sumptuous. When Tang Wulin sat at the table, he already had a fierce look on his face. What should he do about last night's unfinished dinner? Of course, he would have to eat more than his fill in this meal to make up for the loss. He then demonstrated to the tenants of Grand Star Luo Hotel what a whirlwind scattering wisps of clouds looked like. Captain, what are you up to later? We're thinking of going out for a walk, Xu Xiaoyan said with a smile. Tang Wulin glanced at Gu and said, We're also going out. Xu Xiaoyan had not opened her mouth again when Gu had already said, his injuries aren't healed yet. I'm taking him out to find some medicine, and then we'll head back here. If you guys are going out, don't stay out too late. Oh. Xu Xiaoyan looked at Tang Wulin, then at Gu. She gave an understanding expression. Tang Wulin's face was slightly awkward while Gu seemed nonchalant. The looks on the others' faces were more or less strange. After they finished their breakfast, Tang Wulin and Gu walked out the front door, shoulder to shoulder. The hotel service was lavishly hospitable. A staff member handed them a business card just in case they ventured too far and needed the address to take a taxi back. As the most luxurious hotel in Star Luo City, the Grand Star Luo Hotel was naturally located in the city's center. The diplomatic corps would be having an audience with the Star Luo Empire's royal household. After exiting the hotel, they found themselves in a bustling street. The street was very wide, but there were no vehicles in sight. This was the famous pedestrian street of Star Luo City. It was also the widest street and was called Star Luo Avenue. There were a great many shops flanking the street. The buildings were built in an antique style and resembled Heaven Do City somewhat. Tang Wulin had his hands intertwined behind his head as he walked down the street with a faint smile on his face. Gu walked beside him. Her demeanor was calm, and her eyes looked straight ahead. "Hey, are you really out for a walk? You're not even looking at the surrounding shops." Tang Wulin chuckled softly and asked Gu. Gu shot him a glance. "How do you know that I wasn't looking? My spiritual power is enough to be my eyes." "Forget it." Tang Wulin rolled his eyes. Whenever he thought Gu's spiritual power might have reached the Spirit Abyss rank, he felt even more pressured. If that was true, then Gu's battle strength was not what he had seen before this. She must have been much more powerful than that. For a soul master with elemental-type martial soul such as herself, her strength and spiritual power were directly proportional to each other. Gu suddenly laughed. "Idiot, you believe it just because I said it. It can't be that easy to reach the Spirit Abyss realm." Tang Wulin was slightly stunned. "You were pulling my leg." Gu giggled. "What if I was?" Tang Wulin put on a stern facade and said seriously, "Miss Gu, you ticklish." Huh? Gu was stunned. In the next moment, Tang Wulin's hands had already reached under her armpits. "Ah! Ha ha! Stop!" Gu turned and ran. Tang Wulin gave chase as he laughed. "You dare to fool me? I won't let you go." Gu was running straight ahead when a few people came out of a shop suddenly. Gu stopped instinctively, but Tang Wulin slammed into her back. The two of them were on a collision course with the group. Scram! A deep and fierce voice sounded. Shortly after, a puff of foul wind reached their faces. Tang Wulin sidestepped instinctively and planted himself in front of Gu. With a smack, the man's slap landed on the back of his shoulder. Tang Wulin's body swayed slightly before he steadied himself. His attacker was also surprised. He had put a good deal of strength into that blow. If it were an ordinary person, they would have been sent flying. "Why are you hitting people?" Gu shouted tenderly. A killing intent immediately surged within her beautiful eyes. After Tang Wulin steadied himself, he turned around as well. He naturally shielded Gu behind his back. The one who had hit him was a tall and muscular man. They were a party of 4, and he was the closest one to Tang Wulin and Gu. All 4 of them were middle-aged men, all wearing traditional Chinese outfits. They were all tall and looked strong, but their faces had the air of ruffians. "Get out of here," the man seemed to be feeling contemptuous. He raised his hand to push against Tang Wulin's chest. Tang Wulin's eyes focused. He raised his hand as well and met the man's palm with his own. The muscular man's palm was very large, large enough to wrap around Tang Wulin's. The muscular man snickered. With his 5 fingers grabbing Tang Wulin's 5 fingers and twisted forcefully. The thug was astonished by what happened next. Tang Wulin's hand seemed to have been showered in bronze and cast in iron. It did not budge. With the muscular man still in shock, Tang Wulin put on the pressure and twisted his right hand as well. The man felt a shot of intense pain traveling upward from his palm. He cried out in agony and fell to his knees. Tang Wulin hated the fact that this man was willing to hit a girl, so he did not bother holding back. He twisted his hand with incredible strength. The muscular man he faced was strong, but he paled in comparison to Tang Wulin. The other 3 thugs immediately turned in their direction. "Let go!" the leading bruiser shouted with rage. He took 1 step and was already in front of Tang Wulin. Just then, another person walked out of the shop that the thugs had just exited. In contrast to the muscular ruffians, the person who walked out of the shop this time was not tall, but petite and dainty. She wore a light yellow dress which complemented her delicate frame. She looked to be no more than 15 or 16 years old. She was extremely beautiful, with her long hair falling freely behind her. "What are you guys doing?" The young girl had just stepped out when she saw the commotion. She could not help but frown. The anger on the leading man's face disappeared immediately. He said politely, "Your Highness, it's someone who wasn't keeping his eyes on the road. We'll send him on his way immediately." Tang Wulin pushed lightly with his right hand and sent the man in his grip reeling backward. He grabbed Gu's hand. "Let's go." There was no way that these thugs were willing to leave the matter at that. They immediately surrounded the two of them. It was the young girl in the yellow dress who said with a frown, "Forget it. Let's not make a scene." The four angry muscleheads only stopped in their tracks after that. However, the aura which they released in that instant had slightly surprised Tang Wulin. The soul power waves that came from these four men were clearly not weak. Instinctively, Tang Wulin turned to look at the young girl, and she directed her gaze toward him as well. Their eyes met, and Tang Wulin nodded slightly toward her. The young girl in the yellow dress was somewhat taken aback. Although Tang Wulin was still quite young, his body already appeared to be fully grown. He was tall, had broad shoulders, and his big eyes brimmed with vigor. Among his peers, his looks could certainly be described as breathtaking. The temperament that unwittingly emanated from his body, gentle, but with a hint of forcefulness, made it easier for him to attract attention. When the young girl in the yellow dress saw him, he noticed her eyes brighten up. A faint smile rose on her beautiful face, and she nodded toward him as well. Tang Wulin pulled Guu and walked forward. Guu turned to look at the first muscular man. A cold gleam flashed across her eyes. "Forget it. We're strangers in a strange place." Tang Wulin clearly felt the harsh aura from Guu's body. He tugged on her wrist lightly. It's better not to cause any trouble when in a foreign land. Those thugs earlier were not ordinary people either. "He hit you," Guu spoke coldly. "I'm fine. I've got thick skin," Tang Wulin said jokingly. Guu said, "No one is allowed to hit you other than me." The corners of Tang Wulin's mouth twitched. He could not help laughing aloud and asked, "What kind of logic is that? Why are you allowed to hit me?" Guu raised her head. "I'm just allowed to do so. Do you have anything to say about that?" No comment. Tang Wulin realized that he was truly incapable of talking back to Guu every time she spoke in such a serious manner. Guu cracked into a smile, seeing that he had no choice but to agree. "Now that's the way. Let's go." She held Tang Wulin's hand and guided him forward. She seemed to be in a better mood now. Her beautiful eyes looked in all directions as she searched for a shop that caught her interest. "Look, there's a shop that sells rare metals. I wonder if the Star Luo Empire's rare metals are different from ours. Let's go inside and take a look." Guu pulled Tang Wulin into the shop. Tang Wulin felt a warm glow in his heart. How could a girl like her be interested in ice-cold metals? It was apparent that she was doing this just for him. Tang Wulin was immediately attracted to the rare metals that were displayed on the surrounding racks when he walked into the shop. The Star Luo Empire's rare metal types were obviously quite different from those on the Doluo continent. After strolling past the racks just once, Tang Wulin noticed that almost a third of the metals were unrecognizable to him. "Hello. May I help you? I can introduce you to some of our products," the shopkeeper said while walking over in a courteous manner. Tang Wulin shook his head. "There's no need. Do you have a golden hammer? Please lend it to me for a moment." The shopkeeper's eyes brightened now that there was an expert who knew how to use the golden hammer. Only someone with a very good knowledge of rare metals knew how to test with a golden hammer when choosing rare metals. An expert could tell the difference between various types of metals by using the hammer to knock on them. Soon, a small hammer half a foot in length was brought into Tang Wulin's hands. He walked to the front of the display rack and knocked gently on a blue metal that he had never seen before. Ding! A crisp sound was heard with a short and powerful echo. Tang Wulin's ears moved as he nodded gently. He muttered to himself, "This must be an extremely hard alloy, and it has a high internal density. I can tell from its echo that it has an exceedingly strong ego. It would not be very suitable for fusing with soul power. What a waste." Ding! Tang Wulin frowned slightly as he knocked once onto another piece of metal. The echo sounds melodious. That's a good thing, but it lasts too long. That shows that the metal is quite weak on its own. It has an affinity for elements, but the remaining volume after it's refined is too small. The overall quality is also leaning to the weak side since it doesn't have any unique properties. The shopkeeper walked next to Tang Wulin the whole time as he listened to him knock and examine the metals one by one. The expression on the shopkeeper's face grew more and more astonished. Amazingly, Tang Wulin's analyses of these metals were free from any errors at all. Tang Wulin stopped after he had knocked on a dozen pieces. He turned around as he looked toward the shopkeeper and said, "Do you have any rare metals that are of slightly better quality? I'm not interested in these ordinary ones." He could identify that those metals were unremarkable despite not being acquainted with them. The strength of those metals was even weaker than the heavy silver he usually used, let alone anything else. "Yes, we do. Please hold on for a moment. Anyone would respect an expert." The shopkeeper was acting even more courteous ever since Tang Wulin showed his knowledge of rare metals. He was also feeling rather curious because some of those metals that Tang Wulin had tested earlier were extremely common in the Star Luo continent. Tang Wulin should have been able to identify them on sight. It did not take long before the shopkeeper walked out. He gestured for Tang Wulin and Gu to come with him, saying, "Please follow me to the VIP lounge inside." They walked inside and arrived in a room that had much more elegant fixtures than the outside. 2 chairs were positioned behind a metal table on which 2 glasses of water had already been placed. "Please take a seat. I have limited clearance, so I'm only allowed to show you everything piece by piece." Tang Wulin and Gu sat down. He could not help smiling as he said, "You offer a very good service here." The shopkeeper chuckled and answered, "As long as you're satisfied. Please hold on." He pushed open a door, went past a metal gate and walked into the room. After a short while, he returned with a wooden box in his arms. The box appeared a little heavy as he placed it on the table and opened it. At the exact moment the wooden box was opened, Tang Wulin's eyes brightened. It was a faint golden metal with a crystal-clear translucence to it. It was quite similar to star iron, but star iron was dotted with golden speckles, whereas the metal before his eyes had an extremely even golden color that was not especially thick. Tang Wulin raised the golden hammer and knocked on it once gently. A soft hum was heard. It had a very intriguing echo. It was as if the sound twisted and turned. The metal was shimmering indistinctly as well. Tang Wulin listened for a moment attentively. Once more, he used the golden hammer to knock gently on the metal and it gave out that gentle hum again. The internal density is very high, yet it also possesses superb elemental affinity. Moreover, there are also some exceptional characteristics. The sound echoed 9 times after being struck, and every echo sounded stronger than the previous one. "What are the properties of this metal?" Tang Wulin asked the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper answered, "This is the golden crystal, a very rare metal. It possesses the characteristic of being able to amplify all energy. Just like what you sensed earlier, it will produce 9 waves of resonance when it is amplifying an energy. It will amplify about 1% every time. However, after the resonation, the energy can be amplified up to 30%. It's also difficult to come by as its hardness is extremely high and it has very good solubility with other metals. Generally, one will choose to add this hypermetal when one is performing a high level of forging such as fuse forging." Without thinking, Tang Wulin asked, "How much for this?" He was already a rank 6 blacksmith. It was no longer a problem for him to fuse forge 3 types of metals. He would certainly add in more types of metals to the spirit alloy when he was helping his companions to upgrade their battle armor. The golden crystal was very useful as it was suitable for almost everyone. 10,000 Star Luo coins for 1 gram, the shopkeeper said smilingly. Tang Wulin's expression stiffened ever so slightly. Star Luo coins? He suddenly realized that although he was carrying a good number of coins, those were all the Doluo Continent's Federation coins. How would he get Star Luo coins? Also, 10,000 coins for 1 gram seemed too expensive. He had no way to estimate without any idea of the exchange rate between the Star Luo coin and the Federation coin. Moreover, if this was used in fuse forging in the future, he would need a few tons of this metal if he were to include himself and his 7 companions. The cost of that would be astronomical. Please bring forth the other types of rare metal that you have, Tang Wulin said calmly. Please hold on. The shopkeeper brought out 7 types of rare metal after that. Tang Wulin recognized 3 out of the 7 types which could be found on the Doluo continent. The remaining 4 types were only found on the Star Luo continent. Every type had its own characteristics and was of good quality. These are all the precious metals we carry at the moment. Which type is our distinguished guest interested in? The shopkeeper asked in an extremely polite manner. Tang Wulin swallowed hard and answered, all your stuff seems fine. If you have adequate stock, I wish to purchase a large batch of metal. Oh yes, I have a question. Do you accept refined metal as payment? The shopkeeper was stunned for a moment. Yes we do, but we only accept those of 1,000 refined and above. His earlier enthusiasm had reduced upon hearing Tang Wulin's question. How much could Tang Wulin and Guu refine at their age even if they were blacksmiths? Were they blacksmiths of first or second rank? It was difficult for them to produce 100 refined, let alone 1,000 refined. Tang Wulin nodded. I have some metal to sell. Will you please take a look? His hand glowed as he spoke. He had already added a piece of metal to the table. The metal was crystal clear and translucent. Its jade-like gloss shimmered with layered internal striations. The rare metal they had placed before Tang Wulin appeared dull in comparison to his own metal. Is this jade silver? The shopkeeper almost cried out involuntarily. He walked in quick strides before he arrived in front of Tang Wulin. He lowered his head and picked up the golden hammer cautiously to knock onto the metal gently. A melodious, crisp chime-like sound echoed at once. The echo was soft, but it had numerous twists and turns akin to a musical composition. The shopkeeper's face flushed immediately. This is truly jade silver. Are you planning to sell this? Tang Wulin shook his head. No. I would like to exchange it for your rare metal. It's more convenient that way. Please set a value. Please hold on. The shopkeeper's breathing had obviously quickened as he rapidly walked through the metal gate. When he returned once again after a short while, a stocky middle-aged man followed by his side. The middle-aged man was not tall, but he was extremely sturdy and strong, with his arms appearing especially well-built. He took a few swift steps forward after seeing the jade silver on the table. He placed the instrument in his hand on the table, then he looked toward Tang Wulin. May I please examine it for a moment? Of course. Tang Wulin gestured for him to go ahead. The harmony rate was the most important index in determining the spirit alloy's value, so naturally, he needed to test that. A moment later, Tang Wulin could hear a loud gulping sound following the weakening of the jade silver's radiance on the instrument. The middle-aged man looked at Tang Wulin and mumbled, "Little brother, this piece of jade silver's harmony rate reaches up to 81%. Does your family know that you are selling it?" Tang Wulin was stunned for a moment, while Guu covered her mouth and chuckled softly at the side. Tang Wulin coughed once, but he did not mention that he had forged it himself. Of course they know. I am here to purchase rare metals on behalf of my family. My father said that it isn't convenient for me to carry money, so he gave me some spirit alloy instead. Don't worry. I'm well aware of the jade silver's value. As such, please be fair when you're setting a price. Don't worry. The spirit alloy is indeed rare, so its value is common knowledge. This piece of jade silver with a harmony rate that reaches up to 81%, we are willing to offer a price of. The shopkeeper by his side whispered something in his ear when he was halfway through his speech. The middle-aged man dismissed his previous remarks and said, "You may select any one of the rare metals which you saw earlier. 100 pieces of the rare metal in exchange for this." 100 pieces? This exceeded Tang Wulin's expectations. Jade silver could be worth several cities, but this piece was what he forged by himself when he was a rank 5 blacksmith. It was just 1,000 refined spirit alloy that had yet to reach the spirit forging level. If he were to use this kind of spirit alloy to exchange for rare metals of the finest quality on the Doluo continent, he would receive around 60 pieces at most. So he was quite taken aback when they stated 100 pieces. In other words, the spirit alloy's value on the Star Luo continent was much greater than what it was on the Doluo continent. It was as though radiant coins were shimmering in Tang Wulin's eyes. It seemed as if he was about to make a fortune. He hesitated for a while before he continued. Can you up your offer a little bit more? The middle-aged man gave a forced laugh and answered, our price is absolutely fair. If you were to possess a jade silver of even higher quality, or perhaps if you could offer it in a batch, then we would give you an even higher price. Tang Wulin spoke, those rare metals which I saw earlier, do you have an adequate supply of them? All of you should know that the failure rate of us blacksmiths in forging spirit alloy or spirit forging is very high. That is why we prioritize both the quality and quantity of rare metals. The middle-aged man exclaimed resolutely, don't you worry about the quantity and quality. We are able to open our shop in the Star Luo Avenue only under strict scrutiny. As long as we keep to a certain limit, it shouldn't be a problem for us. However, if you require an especially large quantity, then I will need a certain period of time to meet your need. Tang Wulin nodded and answered, all right, deal. First I will exchange this piece of spirit alloy for 100 pieces of golden crystal. Consider this a promising start. Please stock up on these 3 types of rare metals, golden crystal, adaptive silver, and star copper. I will go back to show the quality of this batch of golden crystals to my father, then we might return to exchange or purchase in a large quantity. Very well. That won't be a problem. The more spirit alloys, the merrier, the middle-aged man answered joyously. Tang Wulin chatted with him for a while longer in order to learn more about the exchange rate. Even though it was difficult to determine the rate between the Star Luo coin and the Federation coin, Tang Wulin managed to estimate based on the exchange quantity of rare metals. The value of spirit forging on the Star Luo continent was almost the same as Doluo continent, but the value of spirit alloy was much higher in the former. It was as if the blacksmiths in the Star Luo Empire lacked the skill for forging spirit alloy. Gu asked softly after they left the rare metal shop, I remember that you still have quite a lot of that spirit alloy, right? Why didn't you exchange more? The quality of the rare metals here seemed rather good. Tang Wulin sniggered. There is no need to rush. No need to rush at all. Most of the spirit alloys that I carried with me now are 1000 refined. There is still room for me to improve on its processing later. Once it is forged into the 1000 refined spirit alloy or a spirit alloy fused with 3 types of metals, the value will be even higher while the cost of materials is relatively low. That's the way to maximize the value. Don't worry. I'll certainly make a fortune once we've returned. Such a money grubber. Gu could not help laughing. The head of the house knows the cost of fuel and rice. Which part of our cultivation as soul masters is free? The mecha costs money, the battle armor costs even more money, all sort of heaven and earth treasures cost money too. Is it all right for me to stop working hard to earn money? I can only depend on myself. Gu was stunned for a moment. How about I take care of you? Tang Wulin stumbled as he almost fell down. What did you say? Nothing. Gu's expression returned back to normal. Tang Wulin grabbed her shoulder. Can you still take back the words that you've spoken? Live up to what you said. You must take care of me. Gu turned her head to the side, her eyes were filled with mirth. I can't afford to take care of you. You eat too much. Tang Wulin said, what if I eat a little less? No, Gu pushed him away. Stop messing around. Let's go. Tang Wulin laughed and asked, while we're on the topic of eating, should we find a place to have our lunch? Gu rolled her eyes. We just had our breakfast earlier, okay? It's still morning. Still good to have some snacks. I bet there are many local snacks in the Star Luo Empire. Don't you want to try some? It turned out that Tang Wulin was not the only one who had a weak spot for food. 10 minutes later, both of them had reached a side street nearby to Star Luo Avenue. There were all sorts of small shops around the area. The both of them satisfied their cravings by sampling all sorts of the Star Luo Empire's local snacks. The fishball noodles earlier were delicious. Gu exclaimed excitedly. Tang Wulin nodded repeatedly. Yes. It tasted really good, but the portion was a little small. Small? You finished all the fish balls that they were going to sell this afternoon, and you're still complaining that the portion was too small? Tang Wulin felt that choosing to learn how to forge all those years ago was a great decision. They did not have any star luo coins, but he managed to get a few in exchange for a piece of golden crystal before he left the rare metal shop. As expected, the star luo coin's value was much lower than the Federation coins. Spending the coins in such large handfuls felt rather decadent. It was noon. After they had left the street food, Tang Jin asked Gu, so where are we going now? Gu considered before saying, I am going to take a look at the spirit pagoda here. You can do whatever you like. The spirit pagoda? Yes. There ought to be a spirit pagoda over here too. They also have a Tang sect here as well. Should I go and take a look at the Tang sect too? Star Luo City was the Star Luo Empire's capital. Tang Wulin was already aware that the Tang sect headquarters over here was located within Star Luo City before he came. All right. Then I shall go and take a look at the Tang sect. Keep in touch in case either of us needs help. Gu boarded a car and left, while Tang Wulin too boarded a Seoul taxi and headed to what was supposed to be the address of the Tang sect headquarters in the Star Luo Empire. The Tang sect headquarters was not located in the center, but at the outskirts of Star Luo City. Tang Wulin was astonished that the Star Luo Empire's Tang sect headquarters here was completely different from the Doluo continent's low-profile base. It had majestic buildings akin to a small city. The scale of its buildings far exceeded those of the Doluo continent's headquarters. Tang Wulin was an intelligent person. He could tell that the Tang sect received much more money from the public over here than the Doluo continent, just judging from the architectural style. No one was guarding the main entrance. He walked inside and arrived before the audience hall. Two enormous words were suspended on the top part of the audience hall's front door. As a disciple of the Tang sect, Tang Wulin could not help feeling honored witnessing such majestic buildings. An endless stream of people were bustling to and fro from the audience hall. Standing there were two upright counters on both sides that for some unknown reason made him feel as if he was at the Doluo Continent Blacksmiths Association. After circling around the crowd while attentively listening to the crowd from the side, he gradually understood what was going on. The Tang sect on the Star Luo continent was vastly different from the one on the Doluo continent. Here, the dazzling era Tang sect technology company owned by the Tang sect here was a superorganization that spanned the entire continent. They specialized in producing and selling various Soul devices. Naturally, their products were sold for civil uses. Earlier, he overheard from someone that the Tang sect was an ammunition supplier for the Star Luo Empire government. This elevated their status even more. He truly never expected that the Tang sect had such a stature on the Star Luo continent. It was clear that the Tang sect's support toward the Star Luo Empire far exceeded the Doluo continent's federation. It was likely that this was related to the Federation's situation here. After considering for a moment, Tang Wulin decided against revealing his identity. The way things were now was already sufficient for him to glean information regarding the Tang sect here. After all, he was tagging along with the diplomatic corps. Later, he left the Tang sect and returned directly to the hotel. Gu had yet to return. So he inquired at the front counter if there was a forging counter for rent close to the hotel. After getting a reply, he rented the forging workshop and continuously forged. It was far more advantageous for him to forge here in the Star Luo Empire. The society at the Star Luo Empire was not all that different from the one on Doluo continent. Within a mere 2 days, the Shrek Academy group had already completely familiarized themselves with the place. On the third day, Tang Wulin and his group received notification that today was the day the Star Luo Empire's emperor would personally receive the diplomatic corps and guests. The guests would be received at dusk before an entertaining banquet would follow suit. Because of this, they were requested to come dressed in their best attires. For Tang Wulin, his best attire was naturally the same suit he had been wearing. This was almost the case for the others as well. When it was almost dusk, a luxurious car arrived in front of the entrance of the Grand Star Luo Hotel to chauffeur the diplomatic corps from the Doluo continent. Without a doubt, Elder Cai was the most distinguished guest from the Shrek Academy party. On the other hand, Tang Wulin and his group of 8 gathered with the rest from the diplomatic corps under Wu Zhangkong's guidance to board the car separately. The Star Luo Empire's palace was situated in the center of Star Luo City. It was said that it had been built as a complete mirror image of the Dua Luo continent back then. The Star Luo Empire's royal family bore the family name, Dai, and the most famous people from the previous generation of the family was probably the spirit Aistolo or Hui Yuhao. Hui Yuhao's original name was Dai Huyao, and he was Orthodox royalty from the Star Luo Empire. The Dai family had been exercising control over the Star Luo Empire ever since ancient times. There was a period when the family abdicated its royal title. However, following the spirit Aistolo or Hui Yuhao's uprising later on, the Dai family regained their royal title once more. It was precisely due to the spirit Aistolo's deterrence that the Federation did not dare not completely annihilate the Star Luo Empire, although they had already exercised absolute dominance over the Doluo continent at the time. This resulted in the opportunity for the Star Luo Empire's Great Migration. However, the Star Luo Empire paid a dire price for their Great Migration. Even if the Star Luo Empire were to join forces with the faraway Heaven Do Federation from the Heaven Do continent, its overall national strength would still not be able to measure up to the Federation of the Doluo continent. The sounds of loud horn echoed, and the grand national ceremony began in front of the Star Luo Empire's palace. A bright red carpet stretched all the way from the Star Luo Empire's palace. The Federation's vice president was leading the Doluo continent's diplomatic corps along with a few other reputable members of the parliament in addition to Elder Cai and a few others. Tang Wulin and the rest could only stand at a spot that was nearer to the back and almost dozed off as he listened to the majestic music. Having forged until a little too late last night, he only returned to the hotel after midnight. Tang Wulin also went to exchange some rare metals again today and was truly uninterested in the welcoming banquet tonight. Boom! A violent explosion roused Tang Wulin from his sleep. Subconsciously, he immediately released his soul power. Ji Yu, who stood by his side, hastily grabbed him. It's the gunfire salute. Tang Wulin had only reacted to the situation then. He stopped himself from moving awkwardly, but his unusual movement earlier still managed to attract a lot of people's attention. Captain, continue to sleep all right, Xie could not help teasing and earned a glare from Tang Wulin. The sound of the gunfire salute boomed as it drove the ceremony to its climax. Tang Wulin peered from the gaps between people and saw a man dressed in a luxurious long robe along with a golden crown on his head. He then passed something to the vice president of Doluo continent's diplomatic corps. Both parties were exchanging their credentials. Elder Cai is at the side. So it turns out to be a gunfire salute. I thought that I was turning neurotic. Isn't that the girl from the other day? All of a sudden, Tang Wulin noticed the maiden dressed in the long palace dress that stood decently close to the rear of the handsomely dressed man in surprise. It was the maiden with a few burly men that he met when he went shopping with Ji Yu the other day. He recalled how the few burly men addressed her at the time and wondered, could this maiden be a princess? Tang Wulin's heart skipped a beat. I think I'll just continue to sleep then. God knows how long this is going to take. He lowered his head once again and continued to doze off. Just as Tang Wulin entered the dreamland once again and fully displayed his prowess at sleeping while standing, a frail shout suddenly echoed in his ears, murder. Tang Wulin shuddered due to his sharp senses. His responses had been cultivated through repeated battles and his golden dragon body was completely released in a flash without him noticing. Soon, as the powerful aura burst out from his body, blades of blue-silver emperor vine surged outward like a swarm of bees and spread out in the surroundings. His reaction was extremely swift. Moreover, his entire being became wide awake in an instant. He knelt down slightly, his body flashed. Almost instantly, he appeared before Ji Yu's body, shielding her as he looked around at his surroundings in vigilance. Then, he saw pairs of puzzled eyes as he instantly became the center of attention. At this moment, Dai Qianling from the Star Luo Empire had just passed the credentials to the Federation's vice president. The anthems of both continents were playing and His Majesty was kindly shaking the hands of the diplomatic corps officers in greeting. However, Tang Wulin's noisy fuss had triggered a series of changes. Dozens of figures dashed from all directions toward him. The fastest person amongst them arrived before Tang Wulin just barely more than a moment. Although Tang Wulin had yet to understand the true situation at present, his blue-silver emperor vines were still instantly spread out. He also realized that his companions were around him, so blades of blue-silver grass were used to rapidly wrap around his companions' waists. Raising the golden dragon claw on his right hand, he seemed just about ready to launch golden dragon shocks the heavens. "What are you doing, Wulin?" Wu Zhongkong shouted coldly, while his figure simultaneously flashed past to stand before Tang Wulin. Wu Zhongkong approached the figure that was dashing over closely, and the sound of soul power exploded between both sides. Wu Zhongkong retreated by 2 steps while the other person somersaulted backward and suspended himself in mid-air. Almost instantly, various soul devices were locked toward his direction. Tang Wulin was already completely awake by now as he asked subconsciously, "Where's the murder?" He failed to realize that the palace-attired maiden standing behind His Majesty the Emperor had her head slightly lowered. She was suppressing her mouth from cracking into a smile with great effort. Wu Zhongkong glared at Tang Wulin ferociously. "What the hell are you doing?" Tang Wulin looked toward Gu by his side with a confused expression. "Didn't you shout at me that there was a murder earlier?" Gu was stunned as she answered, "I didn't." "Are you dreaming?" "Huh?" Tang Wulin blinked. He was absolutely sure that he had heard it clearly earlier. Could he not tell if he was dreaming or not? Xie was already uncontrollably sneering out loud. If Tang Wulin was truly dreaming, this would be a big joke. At present, the Star Luo Empire's royal armed escorts had already gathered forward. "What's going on?" the elder who had a dull bearing asked in a deep voice. At this moment, even the steady and profound Wu Zhongkong did not know how to answer the others. Yet, he could not skip the explanation either. If the other party misunderstood their intention and determined that they were about to assassinate the emperor, this would truly be a big joke on them. This video will end here. Like video and subscribe to my channel.